Dari sini dapat misalnya apa suaranya dari sini.
Nah, ya itu harus bisa. Jadi maksudnya mau bertanya kecolok yang mana?
Kecolok yang ini saya nggak tahu yang mana.
Sama saya takut.
Ini aja enggak kalau enggak.
Pakai U number aja. Maksudnya mau bertanya kecolok yang mana?
Aku pengen apa nih?
Mau slide-nya dari situ bisa ditampilin ke sini tapi nggak tahu.
Doanya nggak pakai masalah kunci. Enggak misalnya ketika selesai pakai ini. Pakai mana? Bukan yang baca itu diganti gambar. Iya, kalau rektornya, representasi rektor bukan. Kalau ini itu yang yang mengulangnya itu lama banget itu. Kamu nggak boleh diutek. Nggak boleh sambil. Jangan makan. Dia pura-pura es itu kemudian.
Bentar ya, bisa share.
Ya, tegang banget ya, nggak tahu udah berapa lama dia. Berapa lama ya? Wah, tahu nih.
Feedback itu ya.
Apa?
Feedback itu suaranya.
Makanya matiin itunya aja, speaker si ininya.
Berarti Februari ya.
Mana sih speaker ini? Si laptop ini. Bukan ini yang dimatiin. Dikecilin maksudnya.
Ini speaker.
Bukan ini, jangan dia mikrofon.
Oh ini, oh, suara saya.
Iya, suara si ini.
Ya, apa? Lagi. Suara sana ngaruh ya?
Ini mau dicobain dulu.
Oke.
Soalnya mengantar anak
Tes gila.
yang penting aku lihat presentasinya Mbak ya.
Ya, mau kesiapan. Ini.
Coba tadi ya. Makan siang kan kita baru ngomong bahasa cici. Ini untuk membiasakan supaya defense seperti apa. Mana sih yang belum ada? Apa yang mau di-defense? Di-defense nggak lulus.
Mau deketin ke si Mbak ya.
Coba dia. Ambilnya di mana?
Bayang nanti kalau tengah jalan aku sudah selesai bertanya ingin pulang duluan siapa ya?
Ya, kan aula tuh ditutup.
Oh, ditutup ya? Oh, nggak boleh. Ya udahlah. Kalau tidak sekarang.
Masa? Ini mana? Mana? Nggak ada. Coba sekali lagi. Di yang lain.
Dispisi, Mbak. Maksudnya dispisi. Sebelah kiri, dispisi. Kiri. Bawah. Nah, itu dia.
Nggak ada juga.
Enggak, bukan itu. Dis. Bukan ya?
Bukan.
Di sini nggak kebaca. Ini cara lain ada ini. Ya email aja. Nah, iya. Kebalik.
Kok ada gini gambar? Karena aku foto gitu ya? Emang gitu ya?
Ya, itu kan enggak itu apa? Screen awalnya itu.
Oke.
Parah emang gambar berdua.
Ceritanya gimana ini? Laporannya rektor? Iya. Aku sambil diwaktuin ya. Iya. Teman-teman kita mulai untuk mempersingkat waktu. Jadi Mas Ari nggak bisa datang karena ada cuti oleh seorang ayah. Jadi saya mewakili. Kenapa?
Tadi Mas Adi bilang salam buat semuanya.
Waalaikumsalam. Doa Mas Adi semoga lancar. Kemudian di sini saya udah punya protokol untuk public defense of the disease, tapi saya pikir kita skip aja, langsung aja ke saya punya instruksinya nggak?
Instruksi ada?
Ada.
Urut-urutan,
Ya.
tapi aku mau pakai buat kata-kata ini.
Iya, enggak, maksudnya aku juga punya.
Oh,
Jadi
iya.
maksudku Mbak Aya bisa langsung mulai dari yang ini, with the permission of the Council of the Dean.
Iya.
Terus langsung presentasi.
Ya, terus having presented.
Ya, terus I return to
Ya.
director. Habis itu baru kita begini.
Oke.
Ya, silakan.
With the permission of the Council of Deans and in order to obtain the degree of Doctor at Radboud University Nijmegen, I would like to defend my public my doctoral thesis entitled Attachment and Emotional Intelligence: A Study in Indonesian Context. Good afternoon, everyone. Here is the main topic of the study: Attachment and Emotional Intelligence, or AI, in Indonesia. This topic became our interest based on some reason. First, the study of attachment, in this case is adult attachment, and also AI in the Indonesian context is relatively limited publication. Second, there are some previous studies that support the connection between attachment, AI, and culture. Third, the investigation of Indonesia as a non-Western society is potentially beneficial for Indonesia in terms of development of psychological research and theory. The examination of attachment and AI in Indonesia is the main purpose of this study. We firstly adapted this to measurement the ASQ and EQI through the psychometric testing. To explore the attachment and AI of the Indonesians, we generate attachment and AI profile of the Indonesian from 3 ethnic groups: Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau. By applying the group comparison analysis, we also contrast attachment style and AI competencies level, not only among 3 ethnic groups, but also between 2 countries, Indonesian and Dutch. To explore more about Indonesian, we developed the interaction model of attachment, AI, and demographic factor by implementing the same analysis. According to the objective, we report the empirical findings into these 5 studies. First is all about attachment in Indonesian context, consists of the psychometric adaptation of the ASQ and the multivariate statistical analysis. Here we included demographic factor, ethnic, gender, age, and living with family experience as other variables of analysis. Second, we focus on the psychometric adaptation of the EQI, since it is more complicated than the ASQ, then consists of 5 composite scale and 15 subscale. The issue about difference between Western and Eastern societies become the main topic of the study. Here we explore the AI level of Indonesian as an Eastern compared to the Dutch as a Western. To be more specific about Indonesia, we included ethnic groups variability of the Indonesians that may contribute to the AI level. Here, Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau ethnics are the sample of ethnic groups who become the participant of this study. Last but not least, we created the interaction model of attachment, AI, and demographic factor, consists of age and living with family experience of the 3 ethnic groups and 2 gender groups. Here we implement the same analysis, specifically the mediation moderation analysis. To minimize the cultural bias about the ethnic identity, we conduct the study in some provinces and cities where we have a more chance to meet the participant with their ethnic origin. For Javanese participant, we conduct the study at Jakarta and Surakarta cities, located in the center of Java. For the Bataks at Medan City, North Sumatra, and for Minangkabau at Padang City, West Sumatra. Indonesia consists of so many ethnic groups. Each ethnic group has its own characteristic and behavior stereotypes that may be expressed in social relations. There are three of them: Javanese, Batak, and Minangkabau, some of major ethnic groups in Indonesia in terms of population data. According to some reference and personal direction interaction experience, here are the stereotypes of ethnic group of participants. We can see here that Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau stereotypically are different and usually being contrast with each other. According to the objective, here are the participants of the study. In the context of cross-country study, here we analyze the data from Indonesian and Dutch participants. To be more specific about Indonesian, we select the participant based on ethnic identity. We have some ethnic identity criteria that are used to select in the participant as Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau. We can see here the proportion of the participant of each group. Here is the result of psychometric adaptation. We found that the Indonesian version of the ASQ and EQI in Indonesian society. Here is the profile of attachment style by ethnic groups. We can see here that Javanese was dominated with need for approval and confirmation by others, and also preoccupation with relationship styles. For Bataks, relationship as secondary, confidence, and discomfort with closeness are dominant attachment style. We also can see here that Minangkabau's profile is not too different to the Bataks. Now here is the profile based on gender group. All Indonesian men participant, I mean all Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau men, seem to be more confident to self and other than the Indonesian women. They were dominated by confidence and also relationship as secondary style. In contrast, the women were dominated with discomfort with closeness, need for approval and confirmation by others, and preoccupation with relationship, that those can be interpreted as insecure attachment style. This figure presents the profile of EI of the Indonesian participant by using the Dutch norm as a reference. We can see here that the level of Indonesian are lower than the Dutch. Here is the profile of EI of Javanese, Batak, and Minangkabau. Batak is the most developed of total EQ and all scales and subscales, except general mode. What we concern here is the fact that Minangkabau has the lowest score for all the points. Consistent with the previous figure, here we can see that Minangkabau generally have the lowest score for all the 15 EI subscales. To complete the whole analysis, we developed the interaction model that includes 12 variables from 3 latent variables: attachment, EI, and demographic factor among ethnic and gender groups. Here is the conceptual model that will be tested by using SAM. There were 45 parameters that represent the relationship among 2 indicators of demographic factor, the 5 indicators of attachment style, and the 5 indicators of EI competence. These parameters were estimated by 2 control variables, gender and ethnic groups. Here is the result of mediation moderation model analysis. The figure here represents the model for gender group only. Why? Because the result revealed that there is no differences of model among the three ethnic groups. So we didn't analyze further about the mediation model among ethnic groups. It means that ethnic cannot be the moderation factor for the interaction model. From this model, it can be concluded that the relationship between demographic factor, in this case is age, and EI level, can be mediated by attachment style. Based on the result of the study, we conclude that attachment style can be related to EI level of the Indonesian, ethnic and social value that are related to ethnic background, traditional family system, gender difference, and age will also contribute to the attachment style development and EI level of the Indonesian. They usually express in emotional experience, especially in the context of social interaction. As attachment experience that will the first attachment bonding will also contribute to the emotional expression of the Indonesians. We realize that this conclusion is still need to be empirically tested further. Having presented the summary of my thesis, I return the floor to you, Rector.
Thank you. Before we proceed with the questions, does anybody here have input for the slides or comments?
Ini kalau waktunya 11 menit.
11 menit.
English, please, Bu Dokter.
Berapa menit, Tes?
11.
11.
You think
Kalau
it's
saya soalnya
10 sampai 12 ya kemarin.
11. Not more than 11. 10 minutes. Actually. Sampai 11.
Yeah, I think what happens is you take a little bit long pause between click, click, click
Maksudnya suruh mereka lihat dulu.
to. Yeah. What do you think?
But that's the general comments that maybe might help in presenting in a more efficient way. Because while you are speaking or you are explaining the slide, you are actually already showing them what the slide is. So I think the pause is unnecessary from my point of view.
Yeah, I think the pause, if we take that out, it could save us another minute.
Okay.
And then it would make 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Any other comments or masukan in this?
Should be
Louder.
Louder.
louder and more clean.
More strange. More strange.
Okay.
I agree. I think should be louder.
Yeah.
Although we have microphone,
Yeah,
but that microphone is not
yeah.
also not really.
The headset, the
It's
one.
very very clear
Yeah.
from the yesterday.
Maybe in academic sound would be
Okay. For the audience,
yeah.
especially because we have
My ear.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the input and the
Thank you.
comment.
Thank you.
And
Now
now
the slide.
the slide. Oh yeah. Any input?
Yeah, I think 2 things. Because actually the presenter is you, and then you just maybe you just need to mention some important thing, because then we it's too much attract us. Then your description. But for me myself, actually, the most important is the way you tell your story. This is only help to help your story.
And so the highlight bigger than the findings.
Which one? Which slide?
Louder.
Louder please and more strength.
Which
Very
slide?
complicated.
Sorry. The findings.
The finding.
The finding is smaller than another explanation.
Oh,
This one?
the findings.
The
Oh,
finding,
this one.
the finding.
No.
No,
In general.
The last-
In general.
Oh, okay.
The last. Yeah.
The last couple of
Previous one. Previous the previous slide.
The previous.
The
Previous.
previous slide. Again. The previous one.
It's
Yeah, it's for me it's too much information for the
This one. For the ethnic criteria.
as a general. Just for me, if you want to explain it during your presentation, so why bother to put it all in slide? It's just an opinion. And the other opinion for me, the color. When you see too much black, it's just my personal, to my personal preference. It's just too much, especially the graph, the slide on the graph on the next slide. Let's say again next. Okay, for this, when you see the EQ total and Javanese, Batak, and Minangkabau, the remark. So maybe you can. It's a small thing, but maybe you can make it not like
Overlap.
on another. And yeah, if you could make the background as a white, I think it's easy in the eye.
Okay.
No, it's just color. It's just color.
Okay. Maybe I discuss it with my professor.
I think we shall move on to the
Yeah.
question. Thank you, candidate, for your presentation. Now I would like to invite Dr. Basilika from University, yes, from University of Gajah Mada to ask question. The floor is to you.
Since I have no question, but I have, there are some questions from Dr. Suyani and Dr. Okay, Dr. Not Suyani, okay. Professor. Yeah. Should I mention one by one or it's up to you? Okay, maybe only one question first.
That's one round, one question.
One round, one or two.
Sometimes it can be one or two. Like in advance. Okay, two questions.
Two questions.
Okay, the first question is, what is the underlying mechanism that attachment style is linked to the content? And the second question is, in order to develop people's potential, what kind of action that need to be implemented with regard to the attachment style? As we know from the attachment theory of Mary Ainsworth and Bowlby, that attachment style happens during the first stage of life. That's two questions.
If I understood you well, the question points out about the rationale behind the topic, why attachment, and it is connected to AI. Is it right?
Nggak paham pertanyaan. Psikologi.
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah.
That's the first question. The second question is the practical advantage due to the assessment style. Let me explain one by one. Oh yeah,
I'm not sure.
Anna Madam, thank you for the compliment. Thank you for your lovely words. Suit you well. The question points out about the rationale behind the topic, why attachment, and why it is connected with AI level. And the second one is about the practical advantage of the research, especially due to the attachment style. Right? Okay, let me explain one by one. This study used the eclectic approach that mainly consists of psychological, sociological, and anthropological aspect of individual, especially in explaining human or individual behavior characteristic. We have some reason behind it why we use this approach. First is about the characteristic of Indonesian society. Indonesia is multi-ethnic society that consists of so many ethnic groups. Each ethnic group has its own traditional value that were handed down across generation. And so for Indonesian, family will be the most important social environment for Indonesian. Through the interaction with family members, especially with parents and siblings, an Indonesian will learn unaccepted behavior and attitude, and also how to deal with others. A psychological concept that focus on how individual relate with other is attachment. Infant attachment talk about how infant relate with mother figure. In this study, we focus on adult attachment, in which we concern about how an individual adult relate with other in a personal relationship, intimacy relationship, and also wider social relationship. Some previous study, mostly in Western, support the direct links between attachment and emotional regulation, emotional consequence. People who are secure attachment with secure attachment tend to minimize stress and feel a better life, quality of life. In contrast, people with negative attachment style usually focus on negative emotion and have more life burden and complaint. So I just think that when we explore about attachment, we can also talk about emotion and social competence of individual. The psychological concept that talk about emotion and social competence is EI. That's why in this study we aim to explain, we aim to examine the attachment that was connected with EI.
Are you satisfied? Yeah. Next, we would like to.
Yang keduanya gimana?
Oh, no.
Okay. For the second question, it is about the practical advantage of the finding of the study due to attachment style. We cannot say that attachment style can be modified. Adult attachment will represent the early attachment that we cannot do anything about it. But the other theory said that adult attachment can be modified by a new experience along the adulthood. So that's why when we talk about attachment in adult, we can also talk about the implication of the attachment itself. In this study, we want to focus on the attachment on the EI level as the consequences of attachment style. That's why what we can do practically is to modify the EI level, not the attachment level. That's the question. That's the answer.
Good answer. Next, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Agustin from Harvard University. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm feeling honored to read and to give comments. Dear candidates, first of all, I would like to review my company. And in my opinion, that this is really, really interesting and challenging thesis. And for myself, that it is really interesting because it is also touching my field of study. I would like to pose one question about your methodology. If I have not mistaken, that it is about comparative study about three ethnic groups in Indonesia: Bataks, the Javanese, and the Minangkabau. But so far, I could not find any sophisticated explanation why you choose these three ethnic groups. I tried to understand. I tried to find it in page 11. You just mentioned that Japanese is soft-spoken, gentle, patient, etc. And then you oppose with the Bataks, which is more or less straightforward people. And later you mentioned Minangkabau, which is not really, so on and so forth. I just wonder how you connect them and theoretically compare these three different ethnic groups. Because in the very beginning, I feel that you will use the different kinship system will affect the, style of attacking. But I was wrong, and you mentioned many things, but in my opinion, that I cannot get any point from that. So I think you should need. I think you should need a bit more elaboration, and then it is very important because it actually will be foundation of my analysis.
Sir, thank you for the compliment. If I understood you well, the question points out about the reason why we choose Javanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau in this study. What the reason behind it? Is it right? Okay. The study aimed to explore the attachment and EI as the concept of psychology that are very limited studied in Indonesia so far. Why we choose Javanese, Batak, and Minangkabau? It is not based on methodological selection, but it is only about the based on the data, population data. Based on the population data from BPS, there are some ethnic groups that are most populous in terms of population. Besides, I also think that when we want to do the cross ethnic analysis, we should consider the different stereotype among them. What you already read in the thesis is the stereotype behavior that were different between those ethnics. But moreover, if we talk about the wider purpose of this study, we aim to make contribution to the development of EI and attachment theory and research by focus on the non-Western societies. Indonesia is the one most populous countries in the world, and this is multi-ethnic societies. And so we want to stress the ethnic difference. Why Batak, why Javanese, and why Minangkabau? We can see that in Indonesia, the patrilineal and matrilineal descents live together and give a nuance in Indonesian culture. What I think is only about that Minangkabau is the most ethnic society that based on matrilineal descents. And at the other side, Javanese and Bataks that are patrilineal, but the two of them can be contrast with each other based on stereotype behavior. That's the reason. And the study, we didn't put culture as a variable, measured variable, but it's based on the characteristic of participants.
Actually, what is in my mind that actually when you make a comparison between 3 or 2, so you have to place it in a similar category. You cannot measure a glass with a pound. I don't know, but then that's a logical.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually I accept.
Okay, I understand.
That there should be the same between 3 ethnic groups when they are talking about attachment. What is attachment in Japanese? And then you just this and then Bataks this and then Minangkabau this. But they all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, we have to remember that the 3 ethnic groups have the same characteristic as an Indonesian. Indonesia itself has its own Indonesian culture that dominated with connectedness, interrelationship, interdependency. That's all Indonesian culture. What's the difference behind the 3 groups is the ethnic value. Why we think it is influence, it will give influence also because traditional value will be internalized passively within individual since early life. We as Indonesia already know well how traditional value impact our attitude and behavior.
Are you satisfied?
Exactly.
Jadi maksudnya tadi gimana Mas? Kalau mau dibandingin?
Mau dibandingin itu ini kan katanya membandingkan tiga etnik tentang 2 hal itu. Ya, mestinya ketika kedua hal ini bisa dilihat di ketiga etnis itu. Ketika ngomongin attachment, ketika dengan orang Jawa itu bisa dilihat dalam diri apa. Ketika orang Minang dengan siapa. Karena takutnya kita nanti akan terjebak pada ini gambaran yang terlalu umum seakan-akan ini. Karena itu nanti kalau misalnya alasannya orang Indonesia itu kolektif ini, kenapa tidak membandingkan Jawa dengan Madura, Jawa dengan Dayak, Jawa dengan Tondano, yang juga. Sehingga kemudian saya berpikir untuk ini perlu punya satu argumen yang lebih kuat secara metodologis bahwa ketiga etnis ini memang penting, mereka punya konsep attachment yang berbeda karena itu mungkin dasarnya adalah kerabatan.
Ya.
Sehingga kemudian internalisasinya mungkin berbeda antara melalui bapak, melalui ibu, dan melalui dua kan gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya ini memang sangat logis dengan seperti itu.
Yeah, if we read the chapter, especially in attachment chapter and cross ethnic EI chapter, in chapter 3 and chapter 4, 5, we can see, I already mentioned that the family system between the three ethnic groups is different.
I'm sure you did it. But in the beginning, want to describe it later. In the beginning, you have to frame the discussion. That I will do this, and then later, I'm sure that you will do. And you will do. But in the beginning, that should be clear. That,
Ini namanya strategi, Mas.
oh, gitu.
Supaya
Sengaja
ditanya,
biar ditanya.
tanya.
Bagus sekali. That's really nice. And you indeed asked the right question that was expected by you.
Nggak semuanya aku tulis.
Makanya saya dari awal saya mencari pertanyaan.
Karena mereka nggak paham konteksnya.
Oke. Kalau itu alasannya salah, silakan.
All right. Next, we would like to invite Professor Dr.
Amin.
Agung Budiono from the University of Jakarta. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear candidate, first of all, congratulations for your to pursue the highest academic degree. Moreover, I have impressed with your respondent that reached more than 1,000 people from our 4 cities, Yogyakarta, Surakarta, Medan, and Padang. It is a quite huge data. Your study involves the multi-ethnic society of Indonesia, particularly people that have an ethnic background from Japanese, Bataks, and Minangkabau. At this moment, I'd like to ask some questions on chapter 6.
Okay.
The chapter discusses interrelationship model that examine among 2 demographic factors, age and living with family experience, 5 attachment style, and 5 EI competencies in the context of gender and ethnic differences of Indonesian society. If I might simplify, this study begin with the general assumption that Indonesian represent a collectivistic society, Eastern social interaction characterization. It contrasts with the individualistic as Western society. Hence, the study assumed that the collectivistic tendency of the Indonesian society might lead the Indonesians with interpersonal skill. Based on your research finding, the interaction model on gender is significant, but it is not for the ethnic variable to clearly distinguish the model. Since your respondent live in cities, would you like to explain a bit more the condition has an impact as on the result? I'm wondering a city that on broader literature called culture melting pot will make a new model of society. What do you think that the ethnicity becomes less relevant since the individualistic type is embedded in the urban society? Thank you.
Another answer, thank you for the compliment. If I understood you well, the question points out about ini ya merumusnya tadi ya tanya. About why ethnic. Tapi nanti memang harus begitu sih. About what? About why ethnic
To what extent ethnicity is still considered as important factor in an urban situation.
Yeah, according to chapter 6, the result revealed that there is no difference model amongst the groups of ethnics. What I can say here is ethnic cannot be the moderation factor for the interaction model. The same model focus on how the some latent variable connected to each other, and then we try to test it in terms of control variable. In this case, is is gender and ethnic. When we want to see the connection, the interrelation among the variables, and we didn't find that it is different between the control group, so we cannot test further about the mediation, the mediation testing, the mediation model. That's the basic concept of SEM, and mediation analysis. So the problem is why ethnic cannot be the moderation factor. I just think that back to my I just think back to my reason why no. Mana ya ngomongnya ya? This study focus on Indonesia. They focus on Indonesia with two ways. Indonesia is a country, and Indonesia is a multi-ethnic society. As a country, we try to compare it with another country. In this case, is Dutch. Why? Because we assume that Indonesia has a general characteristic of Indonesia that can be found in all ethnic in Indonesia. The general characteristic of Indonesia as an Eastern society, for example, that was contrast with the Western society. So at this point, when we try to make connection among the variable, among the latent variable, it can be, makes sense if the connection is not said about the ethnical differences. It is about the Indonesian model. That's why, for me, it is no problem if we didn't find any differences among the model between ethnic groups. That's the answer. Oh, yeah. It is about the site, the research site. What you think the cultural bias due to the modernization, globalization, and so on. What we did is try to minimize the cultural bias by making the more detailed personal data, especially about the ethnic characteristic. We strictly define the ethnic characteristic criteria that should be met, all of them, by the participant. They have to have the same ethnic background with parents, father and mother. They have to live in their ethnic origin more than half of their life, and they have to understand and actively using local language. Why? Because from mother and father, the ethnic value can be handed down across generation. Through the local language, the local term, the traditional habit, and so on can be transferred with local language. And more than half of the age, the life live in their origin, they will have more chance to interact with the local person. That's why the internalization of ethnic value can be assumed to be strong.
You accept convinced. Be convinced with them. Great. Now we continue with Professor Dr. Aris from University of Utrecht.
Dear candidate, congratulations for today. I have two questions regarding your research. First is, do you think that attachment style can be modified in order to have better emotional regulation? If yes, how do you suggest clinician to do this? And the second one, do you think it is possible for individuals to have positive EI even though they grow in the environment with insecure attachment style? And on what stage of developmental that EI could consider as stable?
Ada sir, thank you for the compliment. If I understood you well, the question points out about two things. First is about the first about the modification of attachment style. The modification of attachment style, and the second one is about apa tadi?
Is it possible? It is possible for individual to have positive
Oh yeah.
EI even though they
Yeah. If someone insecure attachment style, is it possible to have a good level of EI or
to have positive EI?
positive EI? Okay. Let me explain one by one, sir. One is about the modification of attachment style. When we use the in attachment theory, there were two assumptions: discontinuity versus discontinuity of attachment. Discontinuity attachment style said that the early attachment will impact all the lifespan until the adult attachment. So when we assess adult attachment style, it will represent the early attachment style. That's continuity point of view. The other one said that attachment style is discontinuity. It means infancy attachments can be different with adolescents, can be different with adults. What makes them different is experience. The older person, the more experience they will get. So in this approach, attachment will be the early attachment will be used as a primary survival. For example, when people have insecure attachment style in the early life and they have a burden in adult, have more stress in adulthood, they will automatically use the past attachment experience to deal with the stress. So if we want to modify the attachment, I think it is not the point. The point is not to modify the attachment, but how we deal with the attachment itself. Because when people have insecure attachment style, so what we can do to make it secure is to add a good experience on to the person. Itu kan ya pertanyaannya. That's the answer. Oh, the second one is it possible if people with insecure attachment style have a positive EI? If we look at the chapter 6, yes, in chapter 6 we try to create the model, and the same analysis reveal that the level of EI can have the direct relationship with and also with attachment style. In this model, especially partial mediation model, the level of EI can be influenced by age through the attachment style. It means when we want to do something with EI, we can also consider the attachment style, because attachment style in this model is the mediation variable. As a clinical psychology, what I can do is developing the intervention program, because in clinical psychology, intervention is always needed to help people in enhancing a better life, not only to cope with the illness, but also to have a better life, have a quality of life, the better quality of life. So, based on the result, what I think is to create the intervention program, especially the prevention program, by the modification of EI and considering the attachment style. That's the answer.
And explain in detail on what stage the developmental EI could be considered as stable.
EI is what makes EI become popular and interesting is its nature as a trainable intelligence or competence. It means EI can be developed, can be modified along the lifespan. There's no strict developmental stage, where the EI develop well, because EI can be modified along the lifespan. It is the nature of EI that was different to the IQ or rational intelligence.
Next, we would like to invite Professor Dr. Agnes. Professor Agnes just recently defended her doctoral thesis,
but already become a professor.
and immediately appointed as a professor at Radboud University.
Right.
Yang dari Mbak Chris.
Dear candidate, esteemed candidate, congratulations for your achievement. It's a very beautiful book. I enjoyed looking at it because I didn't have the time to read it. But it's a very tremendous work you've done here. I'm very proud. My question is on the EI measures. First, is there any single norm of EI, emotional intelligence, or Indonesian context? And the second, all the competences that are measured in the emotional intelligence measure, do you think that all of these competences should be Indonesian participants that you have? maybe the reason why I asked this will be the third question, because maybe there would be one competence in the measure that might not develop fully in one ethnic group. Do you think that competence will still have to be developed? Like, is it necessary to have all the competencies in Indonesian context? And do you think if one of the ethnic groups is lacking of one competence, do they have to develop that competence? Especially when that ethnic group culturally will not allow the development of this competence.
Oke, tadi yang pertamanya apa ya?
Norm.
Oh, norm. Ya, nanti catat.
Is there any one single norm?
Okay. Anna Madam, thank you for the lovely words. If I understood well, the question points out about is there any standard norm, Indonesian norm, norm for EI? If we look at the statistical approach, the normative data can be created based on a large population, a large sample. In this study, we haven't made it yet, but we plan to make it. In this study, we still use the Dutch norm as the reference in the aim to make the contrast between Dutch. Why we use Dutch? Because EI, the EQI has been developed previously in Dutch, and Dutch is one of the Western society that can be represent the Western. So we haven't have any norm for Indonesia, but we plan to make it as a further research.
And the second, just every Indonesian.
Oh, yeah.
Every Indonesian.
Yeah. The question is points out about the characteristic of Indonesia to the EI profile. Is it apa ya? Does all the should be exist in Indonesia, in all Indonesian, all ethnic groups?
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot say it is have to or not have to, because it what we use in here is a baron theoretical of EI that focus on EI as a part of personality. Description of personality, like a personality traits, not only the ability to manage emotion, but also how individual know their self, know other, and relate to each other, relate to other. So when we use EQI as a complete measurement, for me it is no problem if we try to assess all the things, all the assessment, all the scales and subscales at the same level to the all group, because by doing it we will have the profile. What was emerged in this study that was Minangkabau is the lowest score, and the less developed.
Is it lowest score in total or?
In Minangkabau, low in everything, in total, in scale, and subscale. What I think for the review, for the limitation, and for the future research is we suspect that it may be because of the different personal and social growth and development, because Minangkabau when we say about Indonesian, we have to consider about the different layer of social group in community due to social economic, due to education background, and so on. To meet to map to meet to meet the homogeneity sample, we have tried to control the personal development of participant. Education, yes, we try to control it. Most of our participants finish high school, and most of them also continue to the higher program, to higher study program. But what we think is it cannot be generalized in all Indonesia. We have to consider about the local language as a part of culture. In Minangkabau culture, they have a Minang language that was actively used in daily conversation, and it might be influenced a lot to how they develop in Indonesian verbal skill and language comprehension competence.
But I think you should answer more straightforwardly.
Okay.
So the third question, for example, is more about do you, if one competence of subscales or EI measures, if one of those competences doesn't, it's not developed in one ethnic, do you think that it is still necessary for that ethnic to develop that competence? Because probably the cause of this lack of development, that specific competence, is due to the cultural environment that is already there.
Okay. Ya, jadi gitu ya jawabnya.
Mbak Alia kan belum jawab.
Oh.
Saya malah ngomong soal demographic factor yang bukan benar-benar soal measure kompetensi yang
Oke, yang tadi, yang profil itu?
ya
belum menjawab ya?
Yang Minang kan soalnya dia rendah semua tuh. Berarti gimana? Berarti kan tidak semua kompetens ada di semua ethnic group. Nah, kalau misalnya ada satu ethnic group yang tidak punya kompetens itu, apakah perlu dia punya kompetens itu supaya profilnya berubah?
Okay. Ya, back to the nature of EI. EI is trainable intelligence or competence. So whatever the result, whatever the score, whatever the level is not important. The most important is how to deal with the score. What we can do, what action we can do next. For me, as a clinical psychologist, it is possible to make an intervention program, especially to modify the A level by training program.
Jadi ini pertanyaannya berarti lebih pada tujuan measurement itu sendiri, lebih pada deskripsi ya.
Yeah.
Jadi kita tahu mana kompetensi-kompetensi yang muncul di satu group, mana yang enggak, dan apa yang bisa dilakukan. Yes, I am.
Next, we would like to give the chance for Professor Dr. Teddy Setiawan from the Dean of Faculty of Indonesia,
The Vice Chancellor of the University of Arizona. The Director of Social Context Studies.
Yes. Thank you for the
interreligious group.
That's like that. Dear esteemed candidate, thank you very much for the chance of having me to read your script. And I think it's a very good manuscript, and also you've done quite a talent job, and also you might add a great depth to our literature, especially in indigenous studies of psychology, specifically in Indonesia. So my general that is my general comment. We're moving on to the specific questions that I would like to pose. But I'm sorry if I violate these rules, but I would like to follow up on the notions that some of our colleagues have mentioned before concerning the sample, and that you mentioned very clearly regarding the sample characteristics that you have restricted very good. I think it's very good, but I think you might also have to consider the alternative argument that when you restrict so many characteristics in your sample, then it also means restricting your generalization. So it's a loss and gain situation. So if you restrict so much, then you also restrict your limit, your generalization.
Yeah.
And then the second one, which I also, since I'm discussing chapter 2, also going back to Professor Agus Indi's question earlier regarding the culture, I think it's also an important thing that you mentioned in your presentation, that it is an eclectic approach. So I think I get the sense, I totally understand where he's coming from, that you also take cultures into consideration. But somehow we don't see that in your statistical models, which I think to do justice here, you should provide more arguments on why the culture is not included in your statistical models. I do understand that you have employed SAM as your statistical model, and I think it's a very advanced statistical techniques. But again, since you did not include any of the cultural values or the cultural variables into the model, then I think there is some justice to do in that section. So, and then let me just briefly go back to the real questions of mine. I would just very briefly ask, what is the cutoff coefficient for your factor loading when you're doing the SAM or the CFA? And then what is your sampling method, and who are your samples exactly? Because you've mentioned the procedures and also the method in the method section, that you've gained some, specifically in the participant section, you gained some clearance letter from the dean of faculty, but then you also mentioned about the general population in those 3 cities. So I am a little confused here. What are exactly your sample groups?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anderson, thank you for the compliment. When, if I understood you well, the questions points out about the sampling methods.
Yes.
Okay. And who is the real participant?
Yes.
If we talk about the sampling methods, what sampling methods, I may say that it is purposive sampling. Because what? Because I already define the characteristic of the sample. How the procedure to collect the participant? We have 2 steps in the collecting data. The first step is to let everybody in the population target. We have population target, and we let everyone in the population target to fill out the questionnaire. Those who fill out completely will be the prospective respondent. It's only the prospective. We select out all the incomplete questionnaire. From the complete questionnaire, we try to select in the participant based on ethnic identity criteria. So that's why we define the strict ethnic identity criteria to make sure that the people can represent their ethnic origin, their ethnic group. So we can see at the presentation from nggak ingat angkanya tapi
Yeah, it's okay.
itu deh.
Yeah, the number of participants.
Yes.
Okay, but what I would like to know is who are the samples? Because I think you mentioned somewhere in your participants or in your method section that you also get a clearance from the dean of faculty, which means I'm assuming are they students or are they common people in the general population?
Yes. The participant come from many social group. They are student, they are worker, they are also a common citizen. So that's why we have to ask permission not only to the dean or to the head of faculty, but also the community leader.
Right. So the reason why I'm asking this because then also it also limits your generalization because you mentioned in the Indonesian context, but then you also quote unquote bias sample because you also restrict that you will do this purposefully on these selected targets, then they don't necessarily represent the whole general population in those three cities.
Yeah, that's why in the last section of each chapter, maybe almost every chapter, I suggest to do further research that invite participant from another side of Indonesia, because I realize that it is not fair to make generalization only based on the participant from the west part of Indonesian archipelago. We have lots of sample, lots of more ethnic groups, and that's why I suggest to do the future research, to do the replication research from different ethnic groups, especially in the middle and east Indonesia.
All right. Do I have time? Because I think I still have one very first question that still I think I haven't mentioned it very clearly. What is the cutoff coefficient for your factor loading? Because here you have provided us with a very complete procedures and also the coefficient numbers in chapter 2, page 34, page 35. You've come up with this beautiful coefficients, but then when we look it up again, especially on page 35, on the confirmatory factor analysis, the factor loadings, some of them are very low.
Yeah.
0.04 or 0.06.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what are your cutoffs and what did you do if those factor loadings were very low?
Yeah.
Did you drop them off or did you run the test again?
Yeah. By considering the ASQ consists of not too many items, we decide to use everything.
Right.
But for the future research, we have to consider to use it again because this factor loading. We think that we can omit the
Low
items,
factor loadings.
low factor loading, the items, because it will significant to represent the scale, because each scale is style only consists of not too many items.
All right, but I think just to do some justice again, it would be very nice to provide the audience that what is the argument behind accepting the low factor loading, because like you said, it will also impact on the significance levels or on the statistical models that you have. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
kuantitatif ya. Kita yang kualitatif nggak ngerti.
Rocky Gerung.
Kayak lapar.
Rocky Gerung
Kayak
berarti
lapar.
Masih ada pertanyaan? Ada yang mau question?
The last question will be from Professor Ariel from University of
Somewhere.
Radboud University, Department of Business Administration. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear esteemed candidate. Thank you to let me read your very nice presentation. I congratulate you for your hard work and all the effort that you finish it, and I congratulate you again for today. So I have read chapter 5, so I will discuss. I have several questions, but again I will give. I will have further comment from Mr. Perry, and also regarding about the previous question, also about the norm of the questions, and also the factor loading, the low factor loading. So it's just based on those two questions. It's just I'm just wondering if we have a norm question for Indonesia, for Indonesia itself, that hopefully will be developed in the future. Is the factor loading will be higher in terms of the item of scale? It's just a wonder. It's just a wonder for me. That is just one question. And then for my questions, the one thing that why I like read this chapter, I think it's have a practical consequence, because I'm studying business administration right now, so it will be more toward that area. So in page 107, you define about EI as individual's ability to identify, evaluate, control, and express emotions. And also in the introduction, you also mentioned in page 103 that EI itself has a correlation with efficiency and successfulness, which is, for me, it's a little bit vague. What kind of efficiency and what kind of successfulness? But if I have to refer to my area of expertise in business administration, we have some concept called cultural intelligence. So it's defined as the ability to function in multicultural situation. And then, as in cultural intelligence, research has found that it has a positive effect to innovation, to have innovation in the working group with international group, because right now in current dynamic situation, a lot of companies have different nationality in their environment. So with a group with high cultural intelligence, it will influence their positive effort to be innovative. And my question is, do you think there is any correlation if a person with a high EI with a high cultural diversity also will induce an effectivity or successful in terms of an outcome itself? That is one question. And then at page 119, where you mentioned that the competence of Indonesian participants seems to be relative than the Dutch.
Yeah.
So my question is it that Indonesian, in terms of if they have a low EI compared to Dutch, so they will function similarly in terms of working environment with a different culture situation, related to question number one. And the last question is about, because I tried to find a policy recommendation here, and practical information that I can use in terms of policy making. If, example, I am a manager or a CEO in the company, that I have Minangkabau ethnic and then Batak ethnic and Japanese ethnic and with a different EI. Let's say different EI level, different cultural intelligence level, different what is it? If I test in MBTI and after test everything else, with this kind of information that the Minangkabau ethnic have a low EI, in this case, so what kind of role that I have to say manage to them? Is it they are more like an operational person or a leader or something like that? So what kind of policy in terms of business, let's say, that you can recommend to me? Because I think it's very interesting to see.
Okay. So the first is mulai lupa nih. Nggak nyata soalnya. Iya, thank you ya Nias.
Sukses Mbak, mudah-mudahan masih sempat lihat lagi.
Iya, nanti ada sekali lagi sih sama fakultas.
Oke. Ya, biasain ngomong bahasa Inggris.
Iya.
Karena nanti mikirnya udah mesti bahasa Inggris.
Sip.
Thank you Mbak ya. Iya.
Thank you Nias.
Thank you.
Terus tadi tentang apa ya? Norm ya?
Yang pertama itu follow up pertanyaan itu. Saya kalau norm questionnya udah dibuat nih, kira-kira kalau gitu itu bakal naik nggak? Ada nggak yang
itu jadi pertanyaan pertama apa enggak nih?
Enggak, itu cuma wondering aja,
Okay. Terus jadi pertanyaan pertama
itu tadi first question itu about if Indonesian people have a low EI compared to Dutch, why? How they will operate in multicultural?
compared to Dutch.
Yeah, because you said EI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's how their ability to perform. Is it will also is a Western company will look at us as a highly capable person in a very diverse culture.
And also, thank you for the compliment. If I understood you well, the question points out about the what we can do with the lower level of EI of Indonesian compared to the Dutch. Let me start with the Western versus Eastern societies. Western that assume to tend to be individualistic will be different with Indonesian, the Western, the Eastern, who tend to be collectivistic. That's why the contrast between individualistic and collectivistic become just like unfinished problem till now. When we take a look the EI development, most of EI theory and research based on the white skin Western societies. That's why the ongoing research try to support the another research in non-Western societies. So what we find it is the answer of the big question: how is the EI from non-Western societies? Based on the result, we can see that Indonesia that assumed to be good in interpersonal relation because it is collectivism is not revealed in this study. What we can say is about the Indonesian culture that place authority figure is more as a effective affection figure. For example, becoming a children for Indonesia is for unlimited time. It is not about dependency for Indonesia. In the view of Indonesia, it's not about dependency, but it's about the respect to parents. Until we have children, we have our own family, we should involve the parents to make a decision. We need to ask for suggestion to show the respect to the parents. That's why the independency of the Indonesian is lower. Even the interpersonal assumed to be good, but actually it's not. And what we can say is we have to do something with this situation, because it is now the globalization era in which Indonesia have to struggle to compete with another people from other countries, also Western countries that should be more aggressive in the meaning of good, in a good way. So I think it is no problem if we have the fact that Indonesia lower than that. It is the fact, but we can do something because AI is trainable intelligence. Well, so we have to be optimistic with that.
Yeah, so it's will follow up to my second question actually. So we have to do something, but as a company,
Oh yeah.
as a company, we rarely have an intervention method to actually develop AI or IT or other kind of behavior or trait. So if I place myself as a manager,
yes.
so with this kind of information, and then I have this Minangkabau person, this Batak person, this Japanese person, and then I have to make like if I want to make some kind of outcome out of it.
Yeah.
So what I can do, but so I have to place this person as what, this one as other. So, so what kind of a policy that I do?
Yeah. If we want to talk about the policy, the concrete policy, we have to think about the concrete plan and action in the intervention program. What we can do is to consider the profile of Indonesian population based on the data that contrast between Indonesian and Western country, not too much focus on the ethnic. What we can do with ethnic is to make a plan for the action in model. For example, we cannot insist Japanese to be assertive, to be aggressive, but we can do something to Japanese with that selaras tuh apa ya? That still harmony with ethnic value. For Minangkabau, this is the fact, and we have to think that this is the ethnic problem, ethical problem. We can do anything with the ethnic value. We just can do with the EI level with the training program.
Are you satisfied with the answer?
Yes, I think.
Ora S.
Terus apa?
Baca.
Bacanya.
Having defended.
Having defended my doctoral thesis to the best of my ability, I thank the rector and you, my supervisors and co-supervisors, and all who have honored this ceremony by their presence.
We will suspend this blah blah blah, and we will return after the decision.
Apalagi dong masukannya dong?
Kayak Mbak Agnes kemarin ya, dia pasti sudah masuk dia udah diem.
Lanjutkan.
Iya, oke.
Aku juga mau kayak gitu, kita ada dia datang aku mau diem.
Disuruh lanjutin.
Para S.
Yang udah disuruh lanjutin.
Kalau dulu tuh doanya habis ora S itu pakai bahasa Latin.